When you first heard about these stories, what was your first reaction?
I'm not surprised. Mortgage and title fraud has been happening in Ontario for well over a decade. This is nothing new, and we've all known about this for quite some time.
Okay, so if it's something that people have known for quite some time, it sounds like the public really hasn't. Personally, I was quite astonished that something like this can happen.
Yeah.
You know, buying a home isn't like being at a self-checkout at a grocery store. There's so many hoops to jump through. So how can something like this happen?
Yeah, there are so many hoops to jump through, and people buy real estate thinking it's going to be a stable, long-term, reliable, safe investment, and it is. But there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and a lot of opportunities for this scam to get caught, and a lot of people let it slide. The real estate agents allowed this property to get on MLS without ever screening the identity documents of these people who claimed they were the homeowners. It's not enough to just accept an ID document at face value. After that, it went to lawyers, and even the lawyers missed it. And even they managed to accept fake documents at face value and allow title to completely change.
So what does that then say to you about this sort of either security systems that are in place or checks and balances that are in place, or the motivations of the people that are currently in the industry who are allowing this to happen?
It tells me that there's not enough checks and balances in place. Right now, a realtor only needs to requires one identity document from their client before they list the property on MLS. That's not enough. That means if I'm committing a fraud, I only need to steal one piece of government issued ID. Why don't we make it harder? Let's require 2 to 3 pieces of ID before you can even list your property on MLS. After that, why don't we make it mandatory requirement that realtors must input the data from the identity documents into free online tools to verify the validity of that document before the house goes on MLS. These are practices that realtors could exercise today, but I would like to see the industry make changes.
So if you were saying off the top that you weren't necessarily shocked by this, that it's something that has happened before, and you just listed off solutions to it that you would like to see changed within the industry, why hasn't that happened if this is something that's been known about?
I have no answer to that. We have known about this for such a long time. 10 years ago, there was an incident where a couple was stealing title. Sorry, a couple took out a mortgage on a property at the Warden and Shepherd neighborhood in Scarborough. That same neighborhood was targeted again a week later by someone who resembled that same couple. These stories have been in the media before. They've all been covered. So and the requirements 10 years ago are the requirements we have today. So 10 years ago, we needed one piece of government issued ID, and we still need that one piece of ID today. We haven't upgraded, we haven't caught up, we haven't stayed up with the scammers and the fraudsters who are seemingly doing a very good job.
Yes, and I think you're referring to a 2006 landmark case as well. That certainly, as you mentioned,
Yes.
had been covered.
Yeah.
Now, Varun, you're a housing advocate, but also you're a realtor. Wondering, have you ever come into contact with someone who produced fake documents to you, or do you follow all of these steps that you've suggested other realtors do to ensure that you don't, if you have been presented with them, don't fall for it?
No, on a regular basis, I sit as a member of the board of directors for Solos, the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario, and we see on a daily basis fraudulent documents, fraudulent credit scores, fraudulent Equifax scores, fraudulent job letters and pay stubs and identity documents being submitted to landlords to secure housing. Now, that's exactly what happened in the situation with this elderly gentleman who was in a home. He had leased his home out thinking someone's going to move into it, but really they were just really after the vacant property so they could use. So identity documents is really easy to create. It's just a little bit of Photoshop, a little bit of computer software. You need to be vigilant and exercise due diligence. There's a lot of free services and free tools online. The ministry has a service that they came out with a few years ago that allows you to verify whether a driving license is valid.
In terms of also for homeowners here, in some cases it might be making sure that the renter is okay, but in other cases there has to be the checks and balances as you've outlined along the way in the process of listing a home on MLS, for example. What can homeowners really do to make sure that they are not the victim of this?
Yeah, homeowners need to be extra vigilant. So, on a regular basis, browse your statements. Browse your credit card statements, your debit card statements, your mortgage and property tax statements. Don't share your personal information with anyone you should not be sharing it with. Be careful about who you share it with. If you are moving, be very, very careful with what you leave behind at the property. Do not leave a garbage bag full of your personal documents. Make sure you work with Canada Post to change your address and do mail forwarding. Do not leave personal items behind. Use a shredder. That's a valuable tool that a lot of homeowners don't have. Shred all your documents personally before you put it into a recycling bin. There's a lot of small steps that homeowners can take, and landlords especially. Be very, very vigilant and be very careful with the use of fraudulent documents by tenants to secure housing, and don't leave your properties unattended for years or months on end. If you are going to be out of the country or you're unable to check on your property, use a property manager and make sure that there's regular inspections and regular access to your property so you know what's going on. You don't want to find out one day that your property's been staged and it's been listed on MLS.
No, you don't. Those are some great tips. Thank you for this, Varun.
Thank you for having me, Aarti.
Varun Sriskanda is a realtor and housing advocate. We reached him today in Toronto.